Hey, welcome back to the Lightspeed Social Agency YouTube channel. I am sitting down today with some longtime friends of mine, John and Nikki DeCausmaker from CallBoss, and we are going to be talking today about bringing a virtual assistant into your business, what that looks like, and why you would need one, and how that kind of clears up either office tasks that you're personally handling or things that you've previously had an office assistant doing for you that's like physically in your office. If you watched my interview with Jacob Godar about hiring people for your office, you might remember that he shamelessly plugged CallBoss as a company that they use. So I knew that I needed to get John and Nikki on to talk about this with me. Guys, thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So let's just dive in with like, why did you start CallBoss?
So we started at a necessity. So like as of most, we also in a lawn care company. We service just under 2,000 residential customers a month, primarily residential. And as we grew, Nikki would get mad at me all the time because phones were just overloading her and we just couldn't handle the volume. Even if we brought somebody in the office, it was just too much. And there was a burnout to it, right? And we had talked about like, man, how awesome would it be to have a service that would be able to handle this overflow for us? And that's kind of how the concept was developed. And Nikki comes from a call center world. So about 3 years ago, we pulled the trigger and we launched it. And our lawn care company became the big test study to see how well, what tweaks we needed to make. And it's been successful as far as like, even Little John's, even though we have a full staff of people in our office, when we hit peak season or we have a staff meeting or stuff is happening, we still let them take the overflow calls and we still let them do all that. And it's a great help because now like I feel, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like, I feel like Julian and some of the people in our office, they don't feel like they're alone anymore, right? They don't feel like, oh my gosh, man, it's too much for me to handle. Now they have this team that virtually helps them get through tasks that they can do through the phone. So that's how we got started.
And I love that you say team, because that's one thing that's really important for people to understand. A lot of times, if you have an office assistant or an office manager, they might feel threatened by a VA or someone coming in to help. And it's like, once they understand that it's a team and we're just trying to help you and you direct us, we can really make it happen. That's key to making everything work.
Exactly.
I remember working in a call center and, we were the call center. So there was no overflow after us. And during the peak season, you could see the phone queue just backing up more and more. And it's like, am I going to lunch today? Like, just like that stress of knowing there's people waiting, and every second that they're waiting, they're like getting a little more frustrated. And like, you just know that the calls aren't going to be pleasant once people have been stuck waiting. So like having that overflow capacity where when the office staff they're all on the phone with someone, that call going somewhere else and someone feeling heard immediately instead of like, I'm trying to drum my fingers on my desk waiting, but yeah. So what sort of tasks does CallBoss handle for a lawn care business?
So, do you want me to take that one?
Take that.
So primarily anything that comes to your office over the phone that you would handle in-house, we can handle for them. So it's going to be for clients that are on certain CRMs. We right now are using Jobber, Service Autopilot, Yardbook, things like that. If you're on something like that, we can enter leads for you. We take credit cards, update credit card information, go over invoices with clients that maybe need help. Anything that you could do in a phone call, we can do, with the exception of maybe some scheduling tasks. Sometimes it's hard based on location. If we don't know exactly like what cities line up with other cities, it makes it difficult. But a lot of our clients give us maps and things to help us along the way with that. We pretty much do everything that anyone asks, be it estimates over the phone if they're set up accordingly for that. The only thing that we really don't dabble in is just email. And there's so many variations of where an email can go. It just was a little too tricky. And a lot of times owners and office managers have already built that rapport via email. They'll just like, oh, I'll take that one off your plate. So it became something that just stayed in-house anyways.
Right. And on top of that, we have an instant messaging system set up for whoever their main contact is at that particular company. So if there's an event that's happening, we can message them directly back and forth. That way it's all tracked. And they can message back once it's seen by them. And that just really just streamlines the communication so much more. We even use it in our lawn care company because it works so well. But I think it's that information back and forth, and then it's really up to the company to take it from there, right? To provide the service that has either been bid or closed.
Yeah. So how do you see that integrate? Like, I know the busy season when you're working is like, you're going to get a lot of calls, but then like where we are right now, if you're trying to onboard with a virtual assistant right now for the selling season, you said like you guys can handle estimates if they're set up correctly. How do you, because I know that you guys have marketing minds because you operate two very successful businesses. How do you see a virtual assistant integrating into like marketing follow-up?
Sure.
Absolutely. So a lot of times, depending on the system people are using, they're going to assign tasks to us that are like estimate follow-up calls or even text messages through certain platforms if it's available to us. We're not hardcore sales, but we try really hard to close every sale. And a lot of times we do it just because of the friendliness and the customer service that we provide. We build a rapport for those clients so that they feel like, I do want to work with this company. You know what I mean? And if we can get that relationship over the phone, the sales just follow.
Right. Exactly. Yep. And we're actually like, so like right today, we have follow-ups for pre-emergence, right? So those tasks have been divvied up. They're able to do follow-up calls. They can give estimates. They're helping getting that estimate to that customer or potential customer, and then close it on the phone if they can.
That's awesome. So a virtual assistant, when someone's looking for one, it should be someone that works, with the software that you use to run the business. Like if someone was trying to work with you guys and they were like pen and paper, that doesn't really like work, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Then we'll offer suggestions on what we've seen be successful and try to like help any way we can.
Exactly right. And I think also too, just from our experience, when we actually went on a hunt for a virtual office too, I think finding somebody that knows your industry, that helps out a lot, right? If they don't know your industry, they don't understand like the ebbs and flows of it, like when you get busy, why you're busy, why is it slowing down, right? And I think that's what's really neat about us is that because we have that history, we have that knowledge, right? And the other thing too is like, we want to do the best possible, right? And because we understand losing a customer, it sucks, or losing a lead sucks, right? And especially when you're paying all this money for marketing, you got to close it, right? Or at least try, but not everybody's a good fit. So we have to understand that as well. But I think that just, you got to find the right fit for the company, and understanding there is a little bit of a growth period between those two companies, right? Understanding how they operate, understanding how we operate, and how to mesh it together. I think the worst thing is, we talked about before this got started, is that everybody wants to start the day busy season gets going, and you're like, okay, well, what's realistic and what's not realistic, right?
So what is the like normal timetable for onboarding a virtual assistant?
Sure.
This is the time right now,
Right.
February, get going now, because when April hits, we want to know your processes and your services well enough that we can sell it that quickly for you. If you wait till April, we can get going, but sometimes it's like we're not as polished as we'd like to be, and we like to use the slower season to really polish and get well-rounded.
Right.
So.
If we can talk about the history of Little John's for a second, I think that it'll draw out hopefully something important here. Sure. So prior to having the overflow calls going somewhere, were they like going to voicemail?
So we pride ourselves on trying to answer the phone, but yes, they either go to voicemail, or in the very beginning, they go to my cell phone. And then like, if I heard it, I'd stop working on a yard and I'd answer it, right? And that just was a headache. And then we got a little bit bigger, and we had an office person that was in with Nikki, and they could handle some of the calls, but the volume we're getting was tremendous. So then we looked everywhere really. And we found a couple different types of companies. 24-hour companies, was not a huge fan of it. And then because they have no incentive in the game, right? Like, and then we found a local company which was like, okay, like Nikki's like, well, I trained them how to do it. Like I basically have trained these, like if we do some little tweaks and we think outside the box, like we can really make this happen. So that's how we started, right? And I think there's a huge void, right? So there's actually not a lot of companies out there that do this. There's different companies that have tried to tailor to lawn care or some of these other service-based companies, but yet it's just, the problem is that they're trying to take some corporate stuff down to where we're at, and it's just a hard mesh. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I think that's what got us to think like, hey, customer service is missing greatly in the lawn care world. If you just answer the phone, you could do well.
Yeah. One of the first blog posts that I wrote when I worked at Service Autopilot was about how important answering the phone is.
Yes.
And that was from, a lawn care millionaire video that was years old at that point, but there's still like a big gap in the industry where you try to call someone. I talk to people every day and their like main phone number for the business is the owner's cell phone.
Yes.
And so I'll try to call someone back and they'll have forgotten that we're scheduled or whatever. And, you'll hear trucks passing in the background and a lawnmower running. And it just like, if I'm a customer and I'm hearing that, you just don't feel big enough to take care of me.
Right.
In the way that, and the same thing can happen if you call a call center and you can tell that it's a call center.
Yeah.
And so I think you guys have really hit this like perfect sweet spot of being like super tailored to the lawn care industry. Because the people training the call center employees are like native speakers of the green industry, the industry backwards and forwards, and they don't sound like they're in like a,
People go 500 people in there. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they don't feel too big to not care about you.
Right.
Because you've got like too small to be able and too big to care. And you guys are like riding that perfect line of just big enough to take care of all the needs, but not too big to like have people feel lost in the mix.
Exactly. Exactly right. Excuse me. Yeah, I think that's the problem. And even in lawn care, right? So like the lawn care industry, it's missing that piece of the puzzle, right? It's missing, like guys do a phenomenal work and they do a great job, but they have a problem getting hold of answering the phone, which doesn't matter how much marketing you're doing if you're not going to get those calls to come in, right? And if customers have a question, there's nothing more frustrating than you're calling and you're like, leave a message. You're like, gosh, dang it, man, you leave a message, right? Like on the next service, I just need this done. They leave a message and nobody's calling them back. Yeah. Now they're just being like, oh, well, they don't care about me anymore. Or I'm just old news because I'm a customer. And that's not really the case. The case is like the owner or whoever is just so busy, they're drowning, right?
Yeah. One of the things that Jacob and I talked about was that like his philosophy is that the office staff is almost like the work that they provide is almost more important than the work in the field, because when there's a problem with the field, the customer is going to interact with the office to get it resolved. And so if your office staff is not there and it's just a voicemail, like it's going to compound any problem you had in the field, because now the customer is getting more and more frustrated with the problem. And so having an office staff can save you from not having a perfect field staff.
Exactly right. Yeah, because people just want to be heard, right? I mean, how many times do people just get on the phone and just like, and you're like, okay, Mrs. Smith is just upset but she just needs to get off her chest and then she'll be fine, right? Or maybe there's a bigger problem that we just haven't recognized, but nobody's answering the phone to deal with it or be aware of it, right? And that customer fires you and moves on. You don't really understand, like, hey man, there's a bigger issue here that we just didn't know about.
Yeah. So if people have heard this and they're like, we need to work with a virtual assistant, where can they find y'all?
They can find us online at yourcallboss.com. Just YOUR callboss.com.
Perfect. Any final pieces of wisdom about the office that you want to throw out there before we close out?
Just that it doesn't matter if you're super small and you're struggling to get out of the truck, or if you're big and have 4 people in house and you just need some overflow help. There's something for everyone at CallBoss. Just let us know what that need is and we can help.
Yep. And I'd like to add, like, it also, so to that point, you're right. It doesn't matter how small you are, right? The sooner you can get things off your plate, the better off you are. And but just realize that CallBoss isn't the solution for like everything, right? Like, so like we can take the calls, we can do all this stuff, but like it's a team effort, right? So I think if you're willing and open to be like a team effort, team minded, we want you to succeed. That's the goal, right? Like we have to succeed at Little John's, right? And that's what we put out to all of our employees, and they're a great staff. I mean, CallBoss has amazing staff, but they just want you to succeed. So like, I think a lot of times people get in there like, yep, I got some hands on my phone, good to go, right? And you're
No
like,
more office work for me.
yeah, and you're like, no, time out.
No, we need a reply, really
Yeah.
reply.
Yeah, please answer back. So it's a team effort, right? So I think that's the big takeaway, I think. So
Yeah.
that's all I got. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Well, the official Lightspeed social agency mascot has wandered
There you
into
go.
the room. He's looking for lunch.
Yeah.
John and Nikki, thanks so much for your time today. And we will have a link in the video description to yourcallboss.com so that you guys can check that out if you know that you need a virtual assistant.
I appreciate it.
Perfect. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you.